everyone, what's up? This is Jenny the Garden Designer. Today we're going on a tour of the 2023 Philadelphia Flower Show. The Philly Flower Show is the largest flower and garden show in the US. This was my first time going, so I was really excited to check it out, especially on opening day. The show takes place at a convention center, and it's broken up into 3 sections, all in the same room. So the first section is the exhibits. This is the main attraction. These exhibits are created by professional floral and garden designers. The second section is what I call the plant entry contest area. This area is designated for individual plants and small displays that have been submitted by the public to be judged. Anyone can register to do this, so you or I could do it. You could submit an individual plant, like a lily, for example, that you grew, or maybe you created a display like a miniature garden. There are specific rules for this. You can't just bring whatever you want, and you do have to register in advance. And the third, final section is the vendors, businesses selling items you can purchase while at the show. So we are going to start this video with my favorite professional exhibits. After that, I'll show you some of my favorite individual plants and displays that were submitted by the public. We'll end the video with my opinion on the show, what I absolutely loved, and, well, what I could have done without. This is going to be a real and honest review, so if you're interested, make sure you stick around till the end. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first exhibit we're going to discuss is my absolute favorite from the show, because why save the best for last? It's called A Book in Bloom. Just the name alone is clever and captivating. It draws you in. On one side, you have the white and green themed garden, and when you turn the page, you're greeted with vibrant pinks and purples. The really large flowers are made of paper and add a whimsical touch. Reminds me of something you'd see in Alice in Wonderland. This exhibit wins the award for most creative, in my opinion. Next up is a modern stroll. I'm obsessed with the papery bark of a birch tree, and that is one of the main reasons I'm loving this exhibit. The light pinks and other cool colors play so nicely with the white bark of the birch trees, not to mention the ornamental grass that provides great texture. The moss wall, of course, is a winner, and it seems like no garden is complete without a water feature. Now, the first part of this exhibit is more of a woodland, and the back half of the exhibit transitions into a tropical rainforest. I appreciate how some common, almost overlooked plants, such as the peace lily, are the stars here. And how fun are the lobster claws in the propagation tubes. Moving on to chandelier. Funny enough, my favorite part of this exhibit was the exterior. Everyone was waiting in line to get inside, and I'm over here taking photos of the exterior back corner. So I really liked this view of the chandelier. It contrasts nicely with the black crooked branches and dark black mulched ground. I also love the purple stones on the ground and the water feature. It's very dark and spooky. Goth vibes for sure. You almost expect to look into the water and see someone or something staring back at you. This exhibit feels like a place the Disney villain Maleficent would live, and I'm all about it. From This Moment was created by a local high school. The display was inspired by prom and students that lost out on the opportunity to go to their own prom dance because of COVID. I really like this exhibit because it's a great landscaping idea for any type of event. A gathering in your backyard to a full-blown wedding. To me, this is a very attainable landscape. You can do this at home, and that's why I appreciate it so much. Gardener's Dream is a really lovely and large exhibit, which invites you to walk through and experience spring in full bloom. The revolving floral balls are my favorite. The way the flowers are designed and incorporated is very creative. I also really like the creek. The sound of the moving water is relaxing and adds a nice touch. Towards the end, a small part of this exhibit is a tropical display, which I actually found to be a little random, but that's not the point here. I'm bringing this up because being a Floridian, I see most of these foliage plants all of the time. I appreciated how they added in some flowers that are not tropical, such as liatris. Combining the liatris with the foliage plants is unique and gave me great ideas for how to mix things up in the future when a client wants a tropical design. Talk about eye candy. I can't recall the name of this display, but it's part of a larger exhibit which is space-themed. The funky bromeliads and huge bird's nest ferns totally work with the preserved purple moss to create an out-of-this-world galactic experience. I've worked with preserved green moss, but it never occurred to me to seek out other colors, so this opened my eyes a bit. I'm gonna somehow have to incorporate purple moss in a future project, for sure. If you're under 30, or maybe even 40, you might not understand this one, but all I have to say is birds are my jam. This exhibit is called Birders Look Up and Listen, and it was designed by the Men's Garden Club of Philadelphia. Now, I know I said A Book in Bloom is my favorite exhibit, but I think I may have lied. It's actually a tie with this one. If you take the time to slow down and pay attention, you'll spot cardinals, blue jays, and even hummingbirds. If I had a backyard, it would look something like this. Tons of native plants for wildlife, a soft grassy path that I'd walk on barefoot, and a bench to sit down on in the early mornings to drink my coffee while listening to the birds chirp. Flower power to the max. Didn't catch the name of this one, but huge displays of color like this will make anyone stop to take a second look. While you may not have a massive barrel lying around your house, you can totally recreate this look on a smaller scale by tipping a pot over on its side and planting flowers in the ground so that they appear to trail out of the pot, similar to what we see here. Now we are heading over to building a mystery, which definitely has a bit of an eerie feeling to it. The fog effect on the water plays into that. I really dig it. I also appreciate the use of leaves as a mulch. Moving along in the exhibit, you come to a white covered corridor, or at least that's what I'm calling it. I saw many people walk right by it. In their defense, it's towards the end. However, if you take the time to stop and look down into the dimly lit corridor, you will see a plethora of blood red tulips and tall green ferns lining a pathway at the very end. The dim lighting makes it intentionally difficult to initially spot the tulips. But once you do, oh man. The dark mood of this exhibit, combined with the stark white walls of the corridor and the bold flowers, does something powerful to you. Junkyard Boogie is the name of this bad boy, and it has strong 80s, early 90s vibes. If Saved by the Bell was a floral display, I think it would be this. It was pretty unique. You would never think to combine fluorescent colored palm fronds and monstera leaves with old, fuzzy, flickering televisions, but yet here we are. I like the use of the fluorescent plants, specifically against the bright blue screen TV. Your eyes might need a break after looking at this one, but it's well worth it. The Root of Life exhibit is a great suggestion for a landscape you can recreate at home. Of course, it's fun to see all the elaborate and extravagant designs, but I also appreciate ones like this because they are practical. We can all take away something from an exhibit like this one and use it in our own landscape. The wood rounds used in lieu of stepping stones or pavers adds a unique and rustic touch. They also incorporated some blue flowers. Cool colors in general are my go-to in a garden, but I especially love blue because it's not a very common color to find in flowers. I also like that they planted herbs and vegetables in the corner. I imagine sitting out here on a Saturday evening with a glass of red wine and a homemade pasta or pizza, garnishing it with some fresh basil from the garden. A girl can dream, right? Majestical made the list because it challenges your perception on what a colorful garden really means. We usually think flowers, specifically annuals. However, this exhibit shows you that color in a landscape doesn't have to come from flowers. Incorporating a purple upcycled barrel fountain into a green foliage garden adds just the right amount of pop. This garden also shows us how much interest and variety there is just within green plants. The contrast of a lemon lime colored shrub against a darker green ornamental grass can really be beautiful. The 4 different doorway displays are fun and creative. My favorite is the pink door display, which is called the Orchid Nest. Orchids are always popular and for good reason. They are so colorful and elegant. While the orchid arrangement attached to the actual door with moss might not be practical long term, it's a wonderful idea if you're hosting an event. You will have never received so many compliments on your door. And the orchids and bromeliads and ceramic planters of various size are a beautiful addition to any entrance. So if I have any Harry Potter friends out there, doesn't this display titled Vibrant look like something you'd see in the Weasley's kitchen? Anyway, I just love monochromatic designs, especially in purple. Incorporating flowers within the same color spectrum makes such a statement. Swing Time made the list because it's simple, and simple can be nice. To me, this exhibit is all about appreciating the little things. A campfire, the swing, I like it. The landscaping is unassuming with yellow daffodils and soft grasses. It's a comfortable place. It's where you want to be. All right, so now you know my favorite 2023 Philly Flower Show exhibits. That wraps up the first part of this video. Before we move on to the next section, I wanted to quickly recognize a few honorable mentions. They didn't make the cut from my list, but they are worth giving a shout out to. We are moving on to the individual plant submissions from the general public. As mentioned earlier, anyone can do this, which makes it so neat. They even have a novice section where you can compete against other people that are doing this for the first time. I'm not sure about all of the details, but I know the plants are judged based on a few different things, and the best ones win ribbons. While they were all impressive, I have chosen a select few plants and displays that I thought were very unique and certainly worth recognizing. I didn't pay attention to if they were awarded a ribbon. I went purely based on what I like. I won't be doing much, if any, talking during this part, so sit back and enjoy. So now it's time to review the show overall. What I loved and what I didn't really care for, or was surprised in a not so great way to see. Overall, I'm very glad I came. This was my first time at the Philly Flower Show. I enjoy visiting different garden shows and landscape expos to learn, gain inspiration, and understand what's on trend. Each show has something different to offer. I really appreciated the size of some of the exhibits. Having the ability to walk through them and really immerse yourself in the landscape was amazing. It creates an entire experience. With that being said, I'm also happy they incorporated smaller scale exhibits that were functional and could easily be recreated at home. There was also a decent amount of variety with theming. For the most part, all of the ones that made my list were unique and different from each other. I also like that they focus equally on floral and garden design at this show. Or at least it appeared that way. It seems like most shows are either solely floral or solely landscape, so I really love that they bring together my two favorite things. Tickets are also very reasonable in my opinion. I purchased early, and with tax, I believe it came out to $42 for one adult. Okay, so here's where I share what I wasn't too crazy about. Maybe I missed the memo, but are gardeners into raves now? This is my first diss. I'm not sure if this is always the case, but they went all out on the entrance for the show this year. When you initially walk in, you're greeted by hundreds of kokedama balls hanging from the ceiling. Plants everywhere. Sounds pretty cool, right? As Dwight from The Office would say, false. I had a challenging time enjoying it because all I could focus on was the annoyingly loud club music they were playing. I felt like I was partying in Miami on a Friday night. Where's my wristband and shot of tequila? For the record, at the time of this recording, I'm 33 years old. So while I'm sure there are plenty of people that would disagree with me on the music, you can't use the excuse, oh, well, she must be in an older demographic. Nope, this is coming straight from a millennial. Regardless of where you stand on this, just hear me out for a second. Stop and think about what nature means to you. Whether that's a spot you enjoy hiking, a park where you take the dog, gardening, creating a bouquet from wildflowers you collect in your own backyard, shoot, even scuba diving. Now that we have all curated an image in our minds of what nature means to us, tell me, is Pitbull playing in the background? Maybe some techno? All I'm saying is some soft classical music or nature sounds, birds chirping, the sound of a creek, would have been more appropriate. Time spent with nature and plants should be relaxing, peaceful, maybe even thought-provoking. I think they tried really hard to appeal to the masses instead of the people who truly appreciate plants and flowers. This makes me feel like they don't really care about who they are and what they represent. It's just about getting people in the door. All right, moving on to number 2. My second problem with this show was the agenda pushing. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. I don't want to hear your views or opinions at the show. Period. That's not what I'm there for. I'll just turn on the news or scroll Facebook if I want that. So I'll just leave that there, but essentially there was definitely some agenda pushing with a few of these exhibits. My third diss is some of the art didn't make sense. For example, inserting a massive pyramid-shaped Rubik's Cube into an exhibit that has absolutely nothing to do with massive pyramid-shaped Rubik's Cubes. My final diss is on the vendors. Now, don't get me wrong, I totally support other businesses and understand that, well, they support the show by renting out a space. That's not my issue. I was thoroughly looking forward to strolling through and taking a look at what they had to offer. My problem is they had quite a few vendors that had nothing to do with gardening or flowers. It cheapened the experience and made me feel like I was at a flea market. Obviously, this isn't the vendor's fault. I'm disappointed that the Philly Flower Show, having the reputation that it does for being the most amazing and largest flower show in the entire country, would open their doors to any vendor under the sun. Now, on the other hand, they had some really cool vendors that completely made sense. I actually bought a new spray nozzle that I'm super pumped about, and it took everything in me not to buy a few bulbs for spring planting. But imagine, say, going to a culinary expo. You're a chef, right? And they are selling teething toys for toddlers and motor oil. You'd be like, what? That's how out of the realm of gardening some of the vendors were at the Philly Flower Show. All right, so now you know what I wasn't a huge fan of at the 2023 Philly Flower Show. Let's wrap this up on a positive note, shall we? I'm so glad I went. While I don't feel the need to go again next year, I definitely think it's well worth experiencing at least once. If you're local to the area, I could see making it an annual thing, but I don't know if it's worth visiting every year if you live out of state like I do. But like I said, I definitely think it's worth visiting at least once if you're interested. I'm glad I got to see it. I appreciate all of the hard work that went into putting on this lovely show. I learned a ton and left feeling inspired and ready to tackle my next project. All right, guys. So that's all we have for you today. I really appreciate you watching. And until next time, here's your reminder to create the world you want to live in.